Hi, my name is Cathy Lindsey, and I live in Des Moines, Iowa, in the U.S. And today I'm going to be speaking a little bit on the new moon in Gemini, the summer solstice, and the full moon in Capricorn. Kind of the energies of June, basically, and some of the other things that are happening at that time, the time of all this. Many of the aspects carry over to all three, the two moons and the solstice. We'll talk about them and kind of separate a few of them. It's quite an energetic and powerful month. Kind of an unknown kind of energy. We're kind of in the new energy of Uranus moving into Taurus, which feels a little strange or a little kind of weird in a way because we're not used to Uranus energy in Taurus. And we have a few other very interesting things happening in June. We have Venus traveling with the North Node and Mars traveling with the South Node pretty much through June. Mars being retrograde during part of that. We have Neptune turning retrograde also in June. We have quite a few interesting things happening in the month, and I'll talk about some of those when I go into each moon, and then I can bring out some of those aspects. I also want to encourage you to ask questions. That always helps me focus on the energy and the questions that you have at this particular time, because there's so much going on with each moon, and then of course we have the summer solstice coming in there. So I am open to questions anytime. I have to put my glasses on now. The one thing I wanted to point out too, I do new moon and full moon reports that I put on my Facebook business page, but the reason why I do them is I believe that the energies that are going on at the full moon and the new moons each month amplify the energies that all humanity is receiving at one time. So, of course, people always know the full moon is real obvious in the sky. A lot of people forget about the new moon. But the fact that the new moon and the full moon are very powerful aspects astrologically and to like all humanity is that whatever's happening at these moons are being amplified and being concentrated during the new moon and the full moon for humanity. In between, of course, we know the aspects and stuff are still going on as astrologers, but the norm of the people out there that aren't as versatile in these energies and in our language don't realize that, but they do feel the energies of the moons, and they do kind of tend to look up at the sky more and you know, as above, so below, receive some of those energies, even though they don't quite understand everything. But it is a way that everyone gets an opportunity, basically, to feel and receive a lot of the energies and the aspects and the movements of the planets and the energies that us astrologers concentrate on throughout the whole month. So that's why I think the new moons and the full moons are important, to realize where concentration of energy is basically happening worldwide at that particular time. Of course, each sign it's in makes a difference, you know, with the new moon and the full moons. But again, the aspects that are happening during that time are real important, and those that don't understand it are receiving them also. So I think it kind of helps everyone, not only us that knows what it all means, but those that don't know as they receive the energies, and they kind of make that connection as above, so below. They help us be able to navigate the energies a little better, highlighting our intuition and our instincts, especially with the new moons. And this particular new moon in Gemini that we're having on June 13th is a very powerful one with the aspects happening that we know about, but kind of a quieter one insofar as there's no major aspect to this moon. And so it's kind of like we're shifting into a little newer energy and what do I want to say, energies as far as like the aspects and stuff. Again, with Uranus just moving into Taurus, and this moon kind of taking us into communication and sharing information, etc., with the Gemini, but without a major aspect happening. We don't have Pluto or Mars or something sitting with the new moon, so we're able to feel a little bit of the other energy going on.
Cathy, what about the square to Neptune? That would be a major aspect, do you think?
Yeah, I do believe so. It is a major aspect, and we have some other major aspects going on too. We have, Pluto opposing Venus, and we have Saturn opposing Mercury. Kind of what I meant at that time was just we don't have like Mars or Pluto sitting with the moon, which we've had kind of in the past.
Oh, okay.
To clarify that, thank you. Yes, the square to Neptune is very, very important because Neptune is going to be turning retrograde on the 18th, and so right now communication can be at a little higher level, can be at a little more intuitive level with. Besides it being a new moon is intuitive anyway of the whole lunar cycle, but with the squaring Neptune, it's going to be able to communicate on a higher level. Again, those that understand that can take advantage of it. Those that don't understand it are still receiving it. And it's a lot of times that's an aha moment to people that aren't tuned into astrology, but suddenly they're realizing they're getting messages or they're getting intuitive hits of some sort. That will happen there with Gemini, with the new moon squaring Uranus. I think it's a good opportunity for many people, to pull on that, whether they're conscious of it or not. There's a lot with communication with this new moon. We have Saturn opposing Mercury, and Mercury just into Cancer and Saturn in Capricorn. And that's a huge emphasis on speaking with integrity and respect, and speaking, the no lies, no secrets kind of a thing. With Pluto and Capricorn, and just Capricorn itself. Capricorn is about integrity and respect, and with Saturn in there, it's kind of a double dose of that. But also it brings about the ability to ground what it is that we need to speak. And we have Mercury in Cancer. We have a new moon, the most intuitive moon of the whole lunar cycle, squaring Neptune. There's a lot of intuitiveness. There's a lot of that kind of floaty kind of energy going on, and so grounding what we want to speak and what we want to share with Mercury there in Cancer opposing that Saturn. That Saturn is giving us the ability to ground it and giving us the ability to share it with integrity and with respect. And if we're writing about it or talking about it, or just within our own reality, that Saturn, I think, is going to help a lot of the grounding right now that we need. I also want to point out Pluto opposing Venus. As you know, of course, Venus is with the North Node traveling right now, and we basically have Mars with the South Node. Venus is still in Cancer, 29 degrees. It's a wide conjunction with Pluto, but it's a powerful one. As we know with Jeffrey's work, past life-wise, a Pluto-Venus opposition, can mean literal rape. It can mean a lot of abuse as far as the feminine. or the feminine in relationship. And although Venus is going to be moving, within several hours here, a few hours into Leo, which is wonderful for the rest of June, I think this is bringing up, something that we need to look at, something that we're seeing in the news, at least up here, still an emphasis on that kind of abuse of the feminine, and with that Venus-Pluto opposition. It also, because it's, if you're not looking at it past life-wise, that can be very passionate, it can be very intense, and it can be the start of new relationships or new soulmate relationships. Pluto ruling the 8th house of the soulmate. So a lot of relationship issues going on throughout the month of June. Does that connect with everyone? I love Jeffrey's work on the Venus-Pluto opposition. That's probably because I have a Pluto-Venus opposition by degree in my chart. So it's quite a powerful aspect.
Yes, Cathy. With that Venus opposite Pluto, well, nobody likes to be abused, do they?
No.
So any kind of abuse in relationship, it kind of closes the heart off a little bit. Well, quite a lot, actually.
Yes.
And so how would you suggest, if someone is being abused, how to deal with it? What should one say, or how to deal with it? Because all this stuff's coming up now between the masculine and the feminine.
Yes, absolutely. And how to deal with it. I know one way is when you become conscious of it, and if you become conscious of the abuse, it's a karmic cycle, and it's hard to break that karmic cycle. I think we have a lot of help nowadays with a lot of the movements that are going on. It's learning to respect ourselves and not taking the abuse verbally. This moon is a lot about verbal kind of things. Really, I think, like I said, I had that opposition in my chart of Venus in the 12th. And it was, I kept it behind closed doors secretively for a long time. And then finally, I got the urge through transits that helped push me forward. Also, my astrology teacher at the time, when he brought out Jeffrey and brought out the opposition there, it gave me the ability and the power to move out of it. You really have to grab a hold of Pluto's power to be able to pull yourself out of that abusiveness.
Okay, so instead of ending a relationship, because many of us don't want to end it, we want it to change and to get better.
Right.
I don't know. I guess the key is in the communication.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. But I love what you said about integrity, and I think that's a big part of it.
I do too. I think the integrity and respect, and nowadays that energy is out there. And if someone's in an abusive relationship now, it's time to speak with the integrity and respect, and it's time to take that power of Pluto and put it towards your voice, and so that you can voice how you're feeling, voice that this is not respectful, and this isn't within integrity, and this is getting a little bit on the abusive side, and being able to speak it with all of this right now with the Gemini and this moon, but even with the Capricorn and the full moon, again, that integrity, that respect, that ability to pull on that and then ground it in and really stand by it. And back when I broke my karmic cycle, we weren't quite where we are now, but thankfully to my teachers, and once I was aware of it, I was able to pull on it, but it still took me a long time to break that karmic cycle. And now I'm hoping that it doesn't take as long because of the emphasis on integrity and respect, and the emphasis on being able to speak your truth now, and you don't have to keep it behind closed doors.
Thank you, Cathy. With that Venus opposite Mars,
Yes.
So perhaps, you know, if a man and woman are having an argument and the man just says, well, and he's really angry and he just says, well, emotion, you know, being angry is a natural emotion, but to the woman it's terrifying, it's abusive.
Yes.
Any advice, could you give any advice with that aspect?
Yeah, like I said, in a few hours, and in the chart of the summer solstice and of the full moon, Venus will be with the North Node, and of course Mars with the South Node, and that goes through June. The goal, basically, the North Node in Leo, and then Venus up there in Leo, is to have fun with it and to pull on that kind of more, you know, I want to say fun energy, but the more heart energy coming from the heart of the Leo, opposing that Mars and that South Node in Aquarius. It's like we're pulling away from well, who we used to be and who we used to be as a society. Society, Aquarius, is no longer really putting up with and wanting to shove things under the carpet like we used to. As part of that Mars on that South Node, giving us the ability to start that crusade, or to take the courage to pull out of what was accepted, you know, within humanity or within the tribe, etc., and pull away from that and come into the heart center of that. Huh?
That's brilliant. I love that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I think it's just within, if I remember correctly, like 3 or 4 hours or something. Anyway, a few hours that Venus will be moving in after this new moon. Will be moving into that Leo, and again being able to really emphasize on now. You know, it's about the heart, and it's about fun, and it's about joy, and not the abuse. So that nodal axis with the Mars and Venus, like I said, is going through June. Of course, as always, I have it all written out, and then I get to talking, and I have to find where I'm at. But it lasts throughout June, and there is a huge emphasis on relationships, and relationships of all types. And as we move into the summer solstice and we move into the Capricorn full moon, there's that not only relationships, personal relationships, which there's that huge emphasis with the Venus Mars opposition, which of course is trying to bring the feminine and the male into balance. We need to be in balance. Actually, that's part of what this shift is about, as we, you know, get into the ascension energies and the whole end kind of project of the shift is bringing everything into balance, including the feminine and the male. Capricorn, of course, is a little more on what's considered the male energy. We have Saturn in Capricorn at the time, emphasizing it even more. And the full moon in Capricorn, we have Saturn sitting with the moon. And that can even bring in a lot of, some depression. Which there's a difference between depression that we really need to take care of and the normal depression, which just makes us think and makes us internalize and, figure out where we are and where we're heading, kind of a thing. But Saturn, again, is represents the CEOs and the government and the military and the father figures and corporate America and that type of thing. So a lot of structures, bringing it into structures, and it's sitting with the moon. Now that doesn't have to be bad. Capricorn energy is very grounding, being able to take our intuition, which is the moon, and being able to ground any of the knowledge that we receive and the hits that we receive during that time. Of course, the sign for Capricorn, the glyph or whatever, is a mountain goat with a fish tail, and it's the only one in the whole zodiac, as most of you know, that can take the very high spiritual and ground it down so we can actually use it down here on Earth and bring it into the energies down here. And I think that's a huge emphasis on this full moon here with Saturn sitting right at the moon in Capricorn, of course opposing the sun. Is being able, you know, Saturn, another meaning of Saturn that a lot of people lose, you know, is that it's the wisdom of the elders. And yeah, the historical elders, etc. Yes, but our elders, you know, we don't have to be an elder to have elder energy, which we can bring in with us as we incarnate at different times. And bringing that elder energy in, meditating during this Capricorn full moon, about with the elder energy, what elder energies of our own do we want to have ignited and bring out? That's a lot of the Saturn with the moon, and then of course opposing our core energy, which is the sun in Cancer. And of course that gets emphasized some with you know, Pluto, of course, in Capricorn also. It's not conjunct the full moon, but it's still in that sign. Venus is still with the North Node in this, and it's beginning to move away. It's right at 10-degree orb. It's, you know, wide out there, but still affecting. Mars, of course, is retrograding back, you know, towards the South Node even more. As Mars retrogrades, you know, it's going to be in Aquarius longer than normal, of course, because of its retrograde. And okay, just a second here. Where do I have that at? Mars retrograding, yeah. With Mars retrograding, and especially when we're talking about abuse and stuff, it's time for anybody that's in an abusive relationship right now to think about and make plans as to what they're going to do when Mars turns forward, moves forward. I wouldn't really suggest, you know, confronting at this point when Mars is retrograde, or say filing for divorce or something like that. A lot of us don't want to do that, and we can move, you know, try to heal and move forward. With Mars retrograde, it's kind of a time not to take a lot of action that way. It's a time, you know, not to start something new, a business or relationship, etc. To wait until Mars turns direct. It's time to pause and reflect and kind of, you know, what you're planning and what you want to do. Mars in Aquarius, you know, that's kind of, you know, taking up the I don't want to say swords, but taking up the ability to fight in a way for what's good for the tribe and what's good for humanity, and kind of like that spiritual warrior, that warrior for the good of your community, is another way to look at Mars there in Aquarius by itself. With the South Node again, that could be a lot of past life stuff that we carried in with us, and kind of shifting that old way that the tribe and humanity and the community thought about Mars. Mars isn't all just aggression and the warrior. Mars is passion, and Mars is our pioneers, and Mars is the ones that can start those crusades for the good of all humanity. And I believe with Mars traveling with the South Node, it's bringing up some of the things, you know, our past lives of our community and humanity that we need to look at right now so that we can heal them and we can move forward, you know, into that joy and into that heart-centered community atmosphere of the Leo North Node, and while Venus is still there. Yeah.
Cathy, yeah, I found it interesting that in the new moon Gemini chart, let's go back to that.
Okay.
Oops, wrong way. Oops, here we go. Okay, Venus was at 29 Cancer, making
Yes.
the issues in relationships, you know, very emotional and really feeling this thing, you know. And then when we go to the full moon,
Yeah.
here, Venus is already in Leo. She's full phase. She's, you know, gone into the full phase. She's
Yes.
past Mars in that opposition. And how interesting that Mercury now sits at the point where Venus was in the new moon chart. Therefore, you know, the ability to express how one is feeling and to make that known. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. With Mercury in Cancer there, as we went from the new moon to the full moon, and as you mentioned, taking the place of Venus, basically, being able to communicate those emotions, very, very powerful. It's, you know, it's kind of, you know, still at opposite Pluto, and being able to, and that'll help heal, but being able to speak about it, being able to speak our truth, being able to say our feelings. And with Cancer there, and especially if any of the relationships happen to be around family, a lot of this is pointing more towards romantic relationships. But if there's a romantic relationship that's having troubles, it's usually affecting the whole family.
Cathy, I find it interesting that Pallas Athena is conjunct Mercury, which really gives lots of power to the feminine to really express and
Yes.
in a very intelligent way what's going on, and you know, things like that.
Yeah, and Pallas Athena, the female warrior, I mean, she fought with her knowledge and she expressed herself, and you know, she was quite powerful. I think the two really powerful, well, maybe three of the goddesses was Pallas Athena, Ceres, well, Pallas Athena and Ceres, and then Aries, that would actually stand up to, in whatever form they could, the I say bad gods, but the other gods, including, you know, like Pluto, the ones that were very everyone was afraid of, but those three feminine goddesses were not afraid of any of that. And with Pallas Athena sitting here now in Cancer, and through just through the energies connecting, even going into that North Node, she gives a fight there, and the ability to have the courage and the ability to take action with your voice and to speak what you need to speak, so that you're not abused, or you're not misunderstood, or not like in the old days when we really weren't allowed to express our feelings. And I speak old days, and I'm laughing because, you know, back before with my Pluto-Venus opposition, of course my Venus was in Aquarius in the 12th, it was in the 12th, but I wouldn't speak about, in fact, I wouldn't speak so much, people couldn't even hear me. If I did talk, they could hardly hear me. I was so afraid to speak. And of course that's changed now, but that's why I get nervous every time I get on here, I think. But that is such a, it's so hard to break out of that fear of speaking. And so Pallas Athena sitting there with Mercury, actually within the orb out of sign of that of the North Node, is a very powerful statement. And in this chart in particular, it's like in the 4th house, home, family, and clan. So in Cancer, so it's it is a powerful statement. And then when you bring in the nodes there, and you realize that Jupiter is square the nodes, it's actually the skip step. And Jupiter is, you know, the master teachers, the published authors, you know, the ones that quest for knowledge, the higher knowledge. And in Scorpio, very, very spiritual, psychic on the high end of Scorpio, shamanistic in their spirituality. So, you know, bringing in the natural healing abilities of Scorpio, and the natural connections to earth and healings. Again, you know, growing your own food, growing your own medicines, I mean, Reiki, healing touch, etc. Of Scorpio to help heal this movement into the North Node in Leo, etc. Is very powerful. Skip step, the higher knowledge, the master knowledge of healing and of the very high psychic and questing for knowledge. Another meaning with Jupiter is joy and optimism. And we're looking at Leo North nodes, which is about heart-centered and joy and fun and happiness. So even though it's a skip step, it still helps both of these. And it's more or less saying, get this knowledge out there, which is accented by Mercury in, you know, conjuncting the North Node here in this chart, the full moon. And, you know, accenting the fact that we need to get our feelings out there. We need to start talking to each other and sharing information that's about integrity and respect and joy and optimism and the higher spiritual knowledge and how you treat each other and the feminine and the male, and bringing that into a balance. Yeah, does that make sense?
That's beautiful. Thank you. Yes, that Jupiter is separating by 7 degrees from the degrees of the nodes. So
yeah.
it's separating, it's more conscious, it's like the collective has been working on this, and it won't be too difficult to cope with. And yes, I love everything you're saying here, Cathy. Excellent.
Oh, thank you. Also, that aspect is happening at the summer solstice too. Jupiter squaring the nodes, which, you know, like we said, is a skip step. At the summer solstice, that all comes in with the square there. There we go. And Venus and Mars are even closer to the nodes, which is very interesting. The nodes are stationary at the winter solstice, at the summer solstice.
Cathy, could you please talk about Venus conjunct the North Node here, because the North Node is the resolution node for this skip step. And
yes.
in the new moon chart, we had a Libran ascendant.
Yeah.
What do you think?
In the new moon chart, we have the Libra ascendant.
Yes.
In this chart, we have a Cancer ascendant, right? The summer solstice.
Okay, let me go to them. Okay, the full moon chart, we have an Aries ascendant.
In the full moon, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
No,
These slides are back to front. Something's gone strange with them. The new moon has a Libran ascendant. The solstice has a Cancer ascendant. And the full moon has an Aries ascendant. And they're all, these two are similar degrees, Cancer and Aries, but the Libra one is a little bit further on.
Right, and they're all cardinal.
They're all cardinal. Which chart would you like me to highlight?
Right now, why don't we touch on the solstice?
Okay.
And the solstice is very interesting because the sun, you know, the main thing of the summer solstice is the sun moving into Cancer. It's in the 12th, but it is real close there, sitting on the ascendant. And I think it's a big kind of moment that we need to nurture ourselves, meaning all humanity, that we need to start emotionally taking care of each other. And there again brings in the integrity and the respect and the, you know, speaking your truth and all the things that we talked about with the Mars Venus on the nodes, and then Saturn in Capricorn. And Saturn's actually opposing the new moon, I mean, the solstice sun at 6 degrees out. And it's like the speaking that we need to be doing and the talking we need to be doing is so emphasized, you know, integrity and respect and no lies, no secrets, and no out of bounds ego. That also goes in there. The lies aren't working anymore; they're coming out, and the secrets are coming out when they're not in the higher energy, basically. It's time to take that old way that humanity operated. You know, there again with the Mars conjunct that Aquarian South Node. It's like, take action on this now. Take action, move forward, start the crusades. You know, be that pioneer that's going to make that change, because you know we need our communities and our humanity to be respectful and to have integrity towards the feminine and towards relationships and towards, you know, the creativity and everything that Venus represents.
Cathy,
uh-huh.
Sorry, I keep
That's fine.
commenting. Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
Mirroring that Mars conjunct the South Node there,
Uh-huh.
the moon, which has to do with the nodes. They're the nodes of the moon, right? So that
Right.
moon is opposite Chiron in Aries. And what a great opportunity for healing, because it's in the full phase.
Uh-huh.
So it's a beautiful chart.
It really is. The summer solstice, and this chart, the energy of this chart lasts for like 3 months. And yes, the moon opposite Chiron, extreme healing abilities to be able to take that and to move forward with it. And then Venus so close to the node and Mars so close to the node, that whole aspect working very strongly. Saturn, again, you know, opposite the sun, enough, you know, that integrity and respect and no lies, no secrets. I say that over and over again, but that's been such an emphasis since Pluto entered Capricorn, and now with Saturn there, it's even more so. And then the Libra moon, ruled by the Venus, and you know, equal give and take on each side. It's extremely powerful. And you know, we have we have Uranus squaring the nodes also, and very interesting there, as Uranus in Taurus. And when Uranus in, you know, the energies overlap. And Uranus entering Taurus doesn't mean all of a sudden everything's cut off from Aries. They overlap. They're still right there, you know, separating. But I found it interesting when Uranus moved into Taurus, just a couple of weeks before it actually moved in, was the volcano started in Hawaii, and which is still going on, you know, burning the old away. And excuse me. Another thing that I noticed Taurus being in Earth is here in Iowa, where I live in the United States. In April, it went down on all the records as the coldest April we've had. May went down on all the records as the warmest May that we've ever had. And we never had spring at all, period. And so the weather has been very, very unusual and very changeable since Uranus went into Taurus. And there's a lot of floods and there's other things going on. But those two things kind of stood out to me. The unusualness of a lot of the weather and the volcanoes. We had some earthquakes, etc. You know, also another thing I noticed Uranus went into Taurus was that the tariff quote unquote war, if that's what you want to call it, but you know, with the president of the United States putting tariffs on, that has a lot to do with a lot of people and with money and their livelihood, etc. So it's interesting when a planet enters a sign how it makes itself known in that arena. And so, but that Uranus is squaring the nodes, and so that it's squaring Mars and Uranus, Mars and Venus also in the summer solstice chart. Another thing, of course, when we at the summer solstice, we have a portal open to the universe, and which is very powerful. One of the reasons a lot of people have ceremonies, etc., going on when the solstice happens, because you know, course, the solstice and equinoxes, you know, that's about the earth. That's how the earthly calendar and earthly energies move forward. And of course, they're always in the cardinal signs. We know that, but it opens a portal to the universe, and when it opens a portal, that's an opening in the universe, and we receive downloads from the universe, and downloads even from the ancient star systems, as far as if we have something in our DNA that needs activated at that time, so that we can use that information to help ourselves and help our community, and in the cases of us, astrologers can help move the energy forward, and the humanity and the collective forward. I always ask my guidance to come in, but at all the solstices and equinoxes, and it happens with eclipses too, which of course we're moving into next month. Those portals, when they open, are very important for downloads. And they used to be closed off a lot. They're not so closed off anymore. Since the shift started, a lot of the solstices and the equinoxes and the eclipses have happened with major aspects going on, and happening with a lot of activations. And so it's kind of like the portals widen, kind of like, you know, when you're having a baby, the cervix widens. It's kind of like they widen a little bit every time that they get activated by something powerful, and then we receive more downloads. So the charts of the equinoxes and the solstices and eclipses are very important with what's happening at that time. And so, you know, basically we kind of have, in this one, Jupiter squaring the nodes like a skip step, but we also have Uranus kind of coming in. Jupiter, you know, because the nodes are like at 6 and Venus, Mars 8, 9 degrees, and we got Uranus at 1, and we got Jupiter at 13. And when, you know, you're using the little wider orbs there, which I believe we need to use when we're working with energy, because you just can't cut energy off and say, oh, you can't go beyond this line. Energy just kind of fizzles out as it moves. That's almost a cardinal. I mean, it's almost a grand cross going on. It is basically with Uranus, the newness into Taurus, and the changes, and the, you know, for all humanity, and Jupiter coming in saying we have to do it with the higher knowledge. We have to speak it with our intuition and the high knowledge, and with some joy and some optimism. And then, of course, the Venus-Mars opposition, we got to bring it into balance, the feminine and the male, but also balance of things. So it's quite a powerful chart. And then Saturn, of course, opposing the Sun, and Mercury opposing Pluto. Again, Pluto's saying, Mercury speaking, talking, you have to do it with integrity and respect, and no lies, no secrets. You know, we have to open up and be able to express ourselves and not hide things. If things are uncomfortable and we've done things in the past, you know, reincarnate, we pick up where we left off, those things we put in our face so we can heal them. Which again, the moon Chiron opposition going on there, part of that's the healing.
So Cathy, I also really like the grand trine here between Mercury, Neptune, and Jupiter, which is easy transformation through the water, and evolution through the water archetype. And also it brings in that intellect as well, being able to speak. And with that Neptune, perhaps, you know, divine guidance there.
Absolutely, absolutely. All in water signs. And, you know, tuning into your intuition, tuning into your psychic is so important right now, because a lot of what's going on, we can't logically, I mean, it's too much and we get too wrapped up in it to clearly come up with something right away. And the easiest way to bring our higher intelligence in is through meditation, through manifestation, which we're, you know, creating then. But yes, tuning into our intuition and our psychic and our ability to connect beyond you know, the concreteness of all these energies at one time. You can almost go crazy trying to do all of that in an earthly manner without getting in touch with our higher spiritual. That's where we get our real guidance and our real knowledge from. And there again, we understand that a lot more as astrologers, but you know, the people that aren't astrologers are still feeling it. And especially like at the new moon, full moons, and the solstices like this, because it's a major, it's amplified. And so they're receiving a lot of this, whether they're conscious enough to grab a hold of it is another thing. But even if they're, you know, a lot of people aren't totally conscious of it, but still will go some with their intuition, even when they don't think they have any, and they do. So yes, that, and the water trine, I believe goes throughout all of them. Yes, the 2 moons and the solstice. So we have a lot of opportunities really to tune into our higher guidance and our psychic and our intuition through the whole month of June. And the more of us that tune into it, the more we put that energy out there, and it helps things. It helps bring in some ease and grace, and it helps bring in some optimism, and it helps bring in some joy, and you know, the things that we're really here to get to, you know, is there for people to get a hold of, and trying to move people out of their fear and out of the war kind of energies and the chaos and the discord, which, by the way, P.S., we still have a cardinal square going on, even though Uranus moved into Taurus. It's still in the realm of the square, out of sign, but we still have Eris there. And technically, the cardinal square between Eris and Pluto, and then the T-squares and grand crosses, which we have some of them going on during the 2 moons and the solstice, that cardinal square is going to go on until Pluto moves into Aquarius, because we have Eris there. And as we know, and I've talked about, Eris, you know, made herself very prominent about a year and a half before the presidential elections up here. And her energy is not going away. It's not going away real fast. We're still in very chaotic energy, and very energy with discord, a lot of jealousy. That's part of her energies, you know, on the grayer side. But right now, the grayer side's being kicked up. You know, that's still all going on, and a lot of competition. And on the high side of Eris, you know, that can bring in a lot of growth, moving away from all that, and being in good competition, and being in, you know, getting rid of the jealousy and calming the chaos down, calming it down, because out of chaos comes creativity. We don't want to lose all of it, but we don't want it running as it has been, you know, once Eris made herself known. Again, when planets make themselves known and they move into new areas, like Uranus into Taurus, and you know, Eris making her energies, you know, coming full force down to Earth, you know, a couple of years ago, year and a half ago, whatever. You know, that energy is going to be out there for a while, because that's new energy and we're feeling it. And then it kind of calms down. It becomes a little easier to handle it. But we're still going to be in a cardinal square with Eris and Pluto, and you know, of course, that goes into T-squares and grand crosses. But yeah, so.
So, Cathy, looks like the USA is having a nodal return, because the USA's north node is 6 degrees Leo.
Yes.
And so, with that Venus there, do you think the USA people would be, you know, great spokespersons for, you know, the evolutionary forward?
I believe it's a good aspect for the United States. It's, again, the joy and the optimism is coming from the heart. We very much need to be coming from the heart. The kind of gray side of that happening would be those that want to be king or want to be petted, you know, that kind of symbolism of Leo. And and that's kind of what I've been watching just myself, you know, being a resident of the United States, and the president, you know, being having a Leo ascendant, and at times I feel personally that he's looking at it more as a king over people than someone representing the people, which kind of symbolizes a little bit of the return of the nodal axis in Leo there. Not that I think that that's actually going to happen. What we're trying to do is to move that into, say, the United States becoming more heart-centered for everyone. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I really like that. Mm.
And so I'm kind of watching that because I know that, that because at times that energy comes across with the current president of that kind of king energy, which the United States isn't. And I think that's part of the Mars and Aquarius fact. They're saying, no, that's not the people of the United States. You know, the people of the United States, you know, you serve the people. And so I think that's a little bit of what's going on also with like you said, the nodal return of the United States. So, but
Yes, well, and a lesson of Leo is the dictates of Leo, dictating to others. But then on the other hand, the heart is king, isn't it? The heart.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that of course is what, you know, where many of us are focusing on, you know, coming from the heart. The good king that comes from the heart. We have two kinds of kings. We have the one that, you know, wants to control everyone and everything, and you know, you could look at Hitler as like a king, more or less, that energy at that time. We can have bad kings, but good kings come from the heart, and they rule that way for the good of their people and the best of their people, and make sure that they're fed and have homes. And I always use the movie, I don't know if you ever saw Camelot, and King Arthur and Guinevere and Richard Harris, and I forget who played Guinevere, but one of the scenes that I always loved was he was a king that ruled with his heart. He was very much connected, you know, with his heart, and in this movie showed it a lot. And even like when he went to the farmer's market, and everyone in the village was there, they started to bow down to him, and he wouldn't let them. And he goes, no. He goes, we're all here, you know, buying food and stuff. No, don't kneel down. Don't curtsy. You know, we're all kind of one here. And that scene has never left me. I always, you know, that, and to me, that's the epitome of a Leo king with a big heart.
Cathy, I think it was Vanessa Redgrave.
Yes, it was.
Could have been. But interesting that you should say that, because Saturn is forming an inconjunct, the North Node in Leo, and also with Venus.
Yes. Yeah. So there's a whole lot based on that right now, and funny, I always wish I could just cut that little scene out and play it for people. There's just a lot of changes, transformations going on everywhere. It's amazing. But that's what I see with this North Node in Leo is moving towards that, the king that rules with the heart, the king that thinks with the heart, the ruler, or the main person that thinks with the heart and goes through the heart before they do anything, rules with the heart. And with Venus there right now, that emphasizes that kind of love and that kind of ability to bring that out. And I think the Mars traveling with the South Node is kicking its heels up, basically saying, let's release this old stuff of how humanity or how the tribe or how the community was treated in the past, and head towards that love and that heart energy, and the rulers basically using the heart and the love. So if we could get everyone to do that, it would be wonderful. So we just need to manifest it. Any other questions? I love the questions. Okay. There again, like I said, these themes run through all of the charts. Now, the Pluto-Venus opposition basically is in the new moon chart, and then Venus moves on over and conjuncts in with the North Node there. It's really strong in the new moon chart, so it's strong right now, that Venus-Pluto opposition. And it was one of my favorites when I was studying with Jeffrey, because he gave me a whole lecture on what the past lives of Venus-Pluto opposition. And so, and I broke some of those karmic cycles. That's good. So then we have the main, excuse me a second here. We do have a cardinal T-square going on with, if I can find it, just a second. Eris, yeah, it's with Eris, Pluto, and Venus. Oh, so that must be in the new moon chart. No, it's in this. Yeah. So I got my charts mixed up. Just a second. Yeah, I think it's in the new moon Gemini, where we have Venus, Pluto, Eris / Uranus that are in a square, and then we have a couple other T-squares going on throughout the month. That one, when Venus moves out, dissipates, but then we have a T-square with Mercury and Palisade and the moon and Pluto, and that's in the summer solstice chart. And then a T-square in the Capricorn full moon is Mercury, Eris, and Uranus and Pluto. So the cardinal squares kind of shift. One has Mercury and one has Venus primarily, and then Pluto and Eris, Uranus, of course, is out of sign, but it's still kind of close. So the T-squares in cardinal are still very active. The kind of the backdrop of all three of these, the moons and the summer solstice, involving Venus in the first one, and then Mercury in the other two. So again, our voice, relationships, and our voice, very, very, prominent in these charts. And then, of course, open up to the guidance during the opening of the portal during the solstice is real important also. There you go, yeah. So, cardinal. And, it's the squares create a lot of friction, and they create a lot of stress. And we've been going through this since 2010, these squares, cardinal squares, especially the cardinal squares, with that kind of birthing of new energy and that urgent energy and that changes and transformation. So we're still going through it, and not to forget that we still are, because we do have Eris that is playing a role with Uranus, so with a lot of them. And so actually, yeah, you could probably pull Eris in. Where's Eris? Okay, and also make it almost a grand cross. There you go. Yeah, a grand cross at the summer solstice. So we still have that backdrop going on of that energy of the cardinal squares, T-squares, and grand crosses. So we're still going through change and urgency. It's that urgency, that feeling that really, really catches people.
So, Cathy, we have about 1 minute left.
Okay.
Any final comments or any questions from our audience?
Anyone?
Hi, Cathy. It's Carly.
Hi.
Hi. I really resonated with your story earlier about not being able to speak, and when you would, it would almost be like you were mumbling.
Yeah.
I myself went through that, and I only really started to speak and open my mouth when I had singing lessons. And I had singing lessons for about 2 years, and I would go twice a week, and that totally opened up my voice. And I've been thinking this a lot with this chart with, the Leo and all the Mercury and Libra, and just how beautiful and amazing singing can be. Even people who think they can't sing, even if you just learning a couple of things totally changed how I express, and I can sing all sorts of things now that I never could in the past. And just the beauty of just song and voice and just singing for the sake of singing, and how that can open up so much within our communication.
So true, and especially now because of Uranus and Taurus, because Taurus rules the voice and the throat. I mean, that would be a really good way for the next 7 years plus for people to start getting their voice activated. I didn't think about that. That's really good.
That's wonderful. I thought about that yesterday, Carly, for the first time. So that's something we can all do, I guess. Start singing more.
And it's so much fun too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mine was unblocked. I had a cancerous tumor in my thyroid, and when they took my thyroid out, it unblocked my throat chakra. And I just started talking. I started studying astrology. That was like 25 years ago, 20 years ago, or whatever it was. And so I don't want other people to go through it that way, but it was amazing how that unblocked my throat chakra. But I totally turned into the spirituality and the psychic at the same time. It all opened up at once. So I love the idea of the singing, though. I'm going to keep that in mind.
Okay, thank you, Cathy.
You're welcome.
Okay, so that brings us to the end of your meeting. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I just love you.
Thank you.
So thank you so much from all of us, and we're looking forward to seeing you next time. Would you please thank Cathy Lindsey, everyone?
Thank you, everyone.
It was beautiful. Thank you so much, Cathy.
You're welcome. Thanks.
Thank you, Cathy.
Thanks, Wanda.
Where is it? Meeting.